Well, good morning, everybody. It's Chris here from the Whistle Stop Cafe in Muir, Alberta. And like the last time I did a podcast, I forgot to check my microphone and it looks like it's working. Okay. So this morning, went into the restaurant to do a oil change in the deep fryer because that's important stuff. And as I was in the middle of doing that and posting the daily specials at the Whistle Stop Cafe in Muir, Alberta, I read an article in the Calgary Herald by Don Braid. Now, you may know Don Braid from other Calgary Herald articles. Some of the stuff he does is pretty good. Some of the stuff is completely offside with what I believe in, what my values are. But he does what he does, and he does it very well. So I just wanted to take a few minutes this morning to I'm gonna read this article to you. I'll put it up on the screen. I'll read it to you, and I'm gonna interject my thoughts and opinions in certain parts of it because I think that it was at best disingenuous in some parts, and at worst, I think there's some outright lying in there. So let's discuss it together, and I'll let you guys and gals be the judge of that. But before that, I do want to mention something about the proposed Alberta Bill of Rights that right now is being discussed in the legislature by our government, Bill 24. So there's a lot of hoopla about the proposed addition of a Section 1 clause in the Bill of Rights that the Alberta government was going to table or has tabled. Section 1 of the Charter of Rights and Freedoms basically says, in layman's words, it means if a judge feels like something was an appropriate or justifiable infringement or removal of rights, then it's okay. So Section 1 of the Charter has been used against people like me, people like Adam Skelly, people like Mark Trozzi, people like all sorts of people who have stood up for their rights and had them trampled on because of activist judges. Section 1 is the thing that allows that to happen. Now, our government, in their rush to get this proposed Bill of Rights tabled as law, or tabled and brought into law, they forgot about that, and they put a Section 1 clause in what they presented to the legislature. Now, people like me, of course, we sounded the alarm immediately because that's the last thing we need is another avenue for the government to infringe on our rights and freedoms. They pulled it out of the legislature, went to committee with it, and they've been discussing it. Now, I have good news on that front. The information I have, which so far has been pretty darn reliable, tells me that whatever version of the Alberta rights gets tabled in the legislature is going to be is not going to include a Section 1 clause. It may include something that limits some specific conditional rights, like mobility, for instance, if there's a restraining order, medical autonomy, of course, if a parent says, I'm the parent and I have the supreme say and I want my child to get bottom surgery. Well, there would be an exception there so that parental right wasn't supreme in that case. So long story short, I think that whatever the government puts out is going to be good. I don't think they're going to sneak something in that allows them or courts to strip away our rights further. I do know that there are a lot of MLAs in the legislature. Actually, every MLA that I've ever met has said that they supported my stand. They were, behind me 100%, but they just couldn't say anything. They're really upset that our rights and freedoms were infringed on. So I believe there's some good people working on this. And I trust that when we see the final version that they want to pass into law, it's going to be good. So I hope everybody, you can just, calm your tits for now and have a little patience and trust that there are some good people in government and they are on our side. Now, back to this article, this Don Braid article in the Calgary Herald. Let's pull it up here. If I know how to do that. There we go. So I saw the text of this posted in Holding MLAs Accountable this morning. Thank you very much, Holding MLAs Accountable, for keeping this stuff in the public eye. Because if it wasn't for you, I probably wouldn't have seen this and I wouldn't be talking about it right now. So here's the title. Don Braid, Trump win tells UCP hardliners that they're on the right track, but ex-president disagrees. And then a quote from Cynthia Moore, the ex-president of the United Conservative Provincial Board, United Conservative Party of Alberta Provincial Board. You can't just be agitating all the time. You can't stay in power if you're constantly in chaos, said Cynthia Moore. And you know what? I would actually agree with that statement. So this is by Don Braid, published in the Calgary Herald on November 7th. Only 126 comments. Wow, people really aren't as involved as they should be. So there's a picture of our Premier Danielle Smith at the historic UCP AGM that occurred about just over a week ago. Here's the article. Leave the UCP. Take your single issue passions elsewhere. Stop the chaos that has roiled the party since it was formed in 2017. That's the message to UCP members from Cynthia Moore, the immediate past president of the party board. Now, the first comment, leave the UCP, take your single issue passions elsewhere. I don't agree with that at all. There are many conservatives who get involved and advocate for things because they have a one item that they advocate for. And that's totally fine. That's why the party is made up of so many people and so many members, because we might have individuals with single issue passions, but there's thousands of them. So all of those individuals talk about those single issue passions. And if they can encourage others that is something they should be involved with, then, we bring a bunch of people and we get it done. That's kind of how it works. I will point out that, in my opinion, Cynthia Moore is the ex-president for a reason. There is a very large faction of the United Conservative Party of Alberta that did not like Cynthia Moore. Cynthia Moore seemed to be a Jason Kenney sycophant. She was, kind of pro some of the infringements on our freedoms, and she kind of gave me the heebie-jeebies. Not saying that she's not a good person, but she certainly wasn't aligned with my political beliefs, values, and opinions. And that sentiment is shared by a lot of the United Conservative Party. She goes on to say, some people need to leave, she said in an interview after last week's huge convention in Red Deer. The delegates gave Premier Danielle Smith 91.5% approval, but also passed many motions that go beyond her government's policies. If they can't get on board with a more moderate agenda on governing for the whole province, they should go, Moore says. This part here is the exact reason why conservatives are fed up, why Trump won the US election, why we're seeing conservative movements sweep the globe. It's because of statements like this. If they can't get on board with a more moderate agenda on governing for the whole province, they should go, Moore says. Now, let's think about that. What does that mean? A more moderate agenda. Some of the things that were tabled as policy recommendations at the UCP AGM were things like, parental rights and protecting children against the woke mind virus of the idea that children should be mutilated and chemically changed to suit their their feeling of the day. There's also some things in there about counting votes by hand, not using tabulators, things like this. Now, if you're to say, if you can't get on board with a more moderate agenda, which ones are we talking about? Is it not moderate to say that parents should be involved in the choices of their children make before they reach the age of majority? Is it not moderate to say, hey, maybe we should make sure that our elections are, they have the utmost security and oversight? None of the things that were discussed at that AGM, the UCP AGM, would not be considered moderate. However, if you're not a conservative, they may be construed as extreme. For instance, if you are not a conservative, you might think that it is extreme or far-right extremism to say, no, we do not condone mutilating our children, giving them body surgery before they even reach adulthood. That's not an extreme in a true conservative conversation. That's like basic understanding of society. We protect our children. So statements like this from people like Cynthia Moore are exactly why we're gaining more traction, and we will continue to gain more traction and bring common sense conservatism back to the world. Anyway, let's continue. Oh, I better mention that if you sign up there, you can get newsletters from Post Media Network, and they can do their best to propagandize and brainwash you to believe everything the government says, if you feel like you want to do that. So let's move on. You can't just be agitating all the time. You can't stay in power if you're constantly in chaos. Moore sees the leadership vote as proof that Smith is free to move forward toward the political center. But her view is wait a minute, towards the political center. If Moore sees the leadership vote as proof that Smith is free to move toward the political center, where does Moore see Smith right now? Is she far right or is she left? Because if you're moving towards the center, you're one or the other. If Smith is leaning more right now, which I believe she is on most things, does that mean that is actually people in the United Conservative Party that believe that we should be more centrist or towards the left leaning of the political spectrum? I disagree 100% wholeheartedly. But her view is inflammatory in the UCP ranks, especially since Donald Trump's victory in the US election. Oh, that's fantastic, wasn't it? It's phenomenal that the Republicans have come to power, says UCP activist Marco Van Hugenbos, a friend of mine. He feels Trump's alignment with many UCP issues shows the Alberta government is in the new conservative mainstream and should not tack to the center. I agree. The reason Trump won that election is because Americans are absolutely sick of seeing a party or a candidate try and govern for all by pandering to a small vocal part of society whose issues do not align with the majority or even on with the founding principles of the country at all. Nadine Wellwood, chair of the right-wing pressure group 1905 committee, says the Americans, just like the United Conservative Party, voted for a strong economy, good policies, being told the truth, and being informed. That's exactly what they did. And if you bother to look at the interviews of people that voted Trump in the US election, that's exactly what they say. They say things like, do my feelings fill my pocketbook? Is Donald Trump's persona going to make a difference in whether or not I can pay my mortgage? No, the policies do. They voted for policies because they're sick of things like what we saw from the Democrats campaigning on trans issues and not minor, but societal issues that don't specifically change the outcome of your life. For some, they do, sure, but if you're campaigning on trans issues, is that going to fix the economy? No, it's not. And I've always thought that, if we have time and energy and resources to deal with these societal issues, that's quite the privilege, because that means that everything else that's foundational to our existence and to our country must certainly be taken care of. I mean, the economy must be strong. We must be able to support the needs of people who kind of are on the outlying edges of society while maintaining the structure that allows us to help people in the first place. But no, that's not what it is. And it's the same here in Alberta. The NDP is campaigning hard on trans rights. Well, I'm sorry, but do trans rights bring this province into prosperity and freedom? No, they don't. They never talk about the other things. They never talk about the economy. They never talk about our resource management. They never talk about our relationship with Ottawa that kind of keeps us under the boot of the federal government. They just campaign on things that really, for the most part, to the majority of Albertans, they don't do anything. All they do is farm rage and try and convince people to vote for them because the other people must be so bad because they're not talking about this. No, it's not that the other group is so bad because they're not talking about trans issues or not specifically campaigning on it. They're busy doing things like, making sure we have infrastructure for population growth. They're busy on protecting us from federal overreach from Ottawa. They're busy with trying to improve and strengthen our Bill of Rights so we have rights and freedoms as Albertans. Those are the things that they're doing. And that's not a bad thing. Moving on in the article, Nadine, she cites the convention focus on bodily autonomy, property rights, protecting children and women in sport. Trump is in sync with those issues, as well as the UCP's deep hostility to diversity, equity, and inclusion in hiring. And yes, you know what? The UCP should be hostile towards policies like that. So should the NDP, and so should anybody that actually wants a functioning society with people in charge or performing jobs that that they can do and do well. This idea that we should hire somebody based on their race, their sex, their gender, their political leaning, or any of those things instead of the skills that they bring to that job is so counterintuitive and counterproductive. And it's one of the reasons why this province, and actually all across the world, by the way, is having problems with getting things done properly. It's because it's not a meritocracy anymore. It's this weird dystopian idea that everybody should have an equal outcome regardless of how it affects the people around them. And another reason why conservatism is starting to make a comeback, even in places like BC that hasn't had a conservative government for decades, not even a conservative party. They almost won an election with a, well, let me say pseudo-conservative party in less than 2 years of preparation. 0 candidates, 0 sitting MLAs, except for John Restad. He was one, but he got kicked out and formed a new party, all the way to almost making governance. So conservatism is coming back. Moving on. After the election, leaders like Danielle Smith should pay attention to what's happening, Wellwood says. Well, duh, of course she should. And she is, by the way. I would rank Cynthia Moore as very elitist and disconnected from the true member base of the UCP. So would I. Not one person came to the convention with only one issue, unless it was to vote for Danielle. And yes, there were a lot of people who came specifically to vote for or against Danielle. Most came with a long list of issues. 100% true. Oh, look at that picture. Look at all those people civically engaged, doing their part, knowing what's going on and making sure that society is moving in the direction that aligns best with their values. Amazing. Good for you, everybody. So that picture was UCP members voting in favor of changes to their Bill of Rights at the party's annual meeting in Red Deer on Saturday, November 2nd. On this subject, there is a lot of confusion as to what was voted on at the AGM regarding the Bill of Rights. So actually, I think that's in here. Let me move on. I'm gonna get to that in a minute. Van Hugenbos says that if Smith becomes too moderate, many people in rural Alberta could leave the UCP to form another conservative opposition party on the right. 100%. There's already talk of that. People are really paying attention. It's going to be very hard if the government even wanted to pull the wool over people's eyes. It's going to be very difficult right now because there are so many eyes on them. Have you ever heard the phrase "too big to rig"? Yeah, I heard that too. That's what's happening. So many people are watching and so many people are involved that it is going to be almost impossible for the government to get away with doing the things that the Kenney government did, or even the PCs before them, and especially the NDP, although they did it in plain sight. Moore has a point when she says some UCP activists will never be satisfied. Yeah, I agree with that as well. The Medicine Hat Black Hatters, or Black Hat Group, Human Rights Bill was forced through by the party board. That set a bizarre precedent. The board isn't supposed to recommend policy. Okay, here we go. Major mistake number one. First of all, it was not a bill that was forced through by the party board. That is absolutely incorrect. What the party board presented as a special motion or something like that, someone comment in there exactly what it's called, was what the party believes that the Bill of Rights in Alberta should look like. This was the party members saying, this is what we want passed into law. They didn't force a bill through. A bill is something that goes through the legislature and is debated and then gets read into law. This was not a bill. This was a policy item by the party. The party is not government, and the government is not the party. They are two distinctly separate groups. Yes, the government is run by members of the United Conservative Party of Alberta, but the party itself, whose authority lies within the members, is not the government. Do you understand what I'm saying? The party speaks as to what they want to see the government do, and the government does or doesn't do it. The board isn't supposed to recommend policy. That's also not true. The board can specifically recommend policy as long as it's voted on. And Rob Smith went through this from start to finish before they put this out because there was some confusion about this as well. But according to what I've seen, and according to the policy or the party policy and governance documents, the way this was presented and done was absolutely within the confines of the law and the requirements of the UCP party themselves. So Smith said she might make further changes to the Human Rights Bill. It's not a Human Rights Bill. It is the Bill of Rights. She introduced specifically to please delegates, but there's no way she will adopt this entire alternate document with 21 sections. Well, stranger things have happened. I mean, Trump was elected, and then again, So that was also pretty strange. One resolution that passed could literally defeat the government. It decrees that no matter what UCP candidates or nomination seekers say, they cannot be criticized or penalized in any way by the Premier or any MLA or party official. Now, I kind of have a little bit of an issue with that policy as well. However, this isn't something that could literally defeat the government because, again, these are policy resolutions. These are things saying, the party is saying that, we don't want you guys to be able to do this. And where it goes after that is kind of, we'll see. And the reason for this was people like Nadine Wellwood were removed from, or were disqualified from their nomination to run as a UCP MLA because of comments she made about COVID and the vaccine and things like that. Jennifer Johnson was dragged through the, we're going to get to that as well. She was dragged through the mud after people twisted and lied about what she said in a speech. And so this is the party members' attempt to prevent that. And, what Braid said here about it defeating the government is incorrect, but this definitely needs some work, because how can we say, free speech, free expression, and then, you can't speak anymore? That's a tough one to rationalize. Under this rule, Lacombe-Panoka MLA Jennifer Johnson could not have been kept out of the UCP caucus after she compared transgender kids in classrooms to feces and cookie dough. Don Braid, you are a liar. Anybody who repeats this statement, including Nenshi, but I mean, what do you expect? Everybody in the NDP lies. They're liars. Jennifer Johnson did not compare transgender kids in classrooms to feces and cookies. That is 100% false. And Braid owes Jennifer Johnson an apology, as does Premier Danielle Smith, who also repeated this blatant lie about one of her own caucus members. Jennifer Johnson said that the school system is mostly great. The school system is mostly good. It's an amazing institution in Alberta, and it does very well, except for this little bit of woke agenda that's put in there that is not to the benefit of the children. And she was referring to the woke mind virus of mutilating and chemically castrating children before they even know what they want to be when they grow up. That's what she's talking about. She never once compared the kids themselves to feces in a cookie jar. She compared the school system, the education system, to a batch of cookies that's mostly good. But if you throw a little shit in there, policy-wise, all of a sudden, the cookies aren't that great anymore, even though it's just a little bit. That's what she said. Anybody that knows Jennifer, including the Premier, including her MLA colleagues, know that she is an absolutely wonderful woman with a huge heart, very loving, and would never say anything like that about children. So when I see people repeating this lie, it actually enrages me. It enrages me that conservatives don't stand up for conservatives and push back against this out of political convenience. It was much more politically convenient to just try and appease the woke mob that will never vote for the UCP by kicking Jennifer Johnson out and saying, she has a lot to learn about transgender. Well, you know what? Anyone that repeats or believes this lie has a lot to learn about the English language and should open their friggin' ears before persecuting a wonderful person like Jennifer Johnson. You liar, Don Braid. The Premier would be condemned to silence. Under the motion, no candidate could ever be removed by the leader or the party unless the comments were clearly criminal in nature. Now, there are other parts in the other stuff in the policy and governance of the party, I believe, that would allow this type of thing. However, it's kind of above my pay grade and needs a lot more discussion. But here's a tricky one. If you're going to maintain a unified front as a political party, which is important to be able to win, form government, and get things done, how can you do that if there are, if anybody can just say anything regardless of truth or fiction it's a tough one and it needs a lot of debate. So Braid says, these free speech lovers passed a policy that would deny free speech to others in their own party. That is true. There's no chance Smith will abide by this resolution. To the government, these membership motions are suggestions, not orders. Bingo. That's right. Including the Bill of Rights, what they voted on for the proposed Bill of Rights. Jason Kenney once said that on policy, I hold the pen. And he was right, he does. Smith is too shrewd to say that, but it's how the government will behave. And you know what? I'm actually mostly okay with that. We voted and elected Danielle Smith because we believe in her and we believe that she would do the right thing. We trust in her ability to govern. We gave her the pen, and I have no problem with her having the pen. If she misuses it and does something that's not pro freedom, hurts the ability of the party to move forward and make government and do good things, persecutes individual people, then I'll speak my mind. But when we elect somebody as a leader of the party, yeah, we're giving them the pen, and they should have the pen, period. Despite all this, Moore feels the party is growing up. Yes, it is, and it's growing out as well, just like me. The UCP is more mature now, she says. We've been through the horrible dysfunction of turning against a leader, and I don't believe we're going to do that again. This is the Alberta UCP, we shall see. I'm going to read that again. The UCP is mature now, she says. We've been through the horrible dysfunction of turning against a leader, and I don't believe we're going to do that again. I believe we would absolutely do that again if it was necessary. I believe that part of growing up is being willing to stick your neck out and do the difficult things to right wrongs when they happen. Jason Kenney was a wrong, and it needed to be righted. We weren't just turning against a leader. We were saving our futures by removing someone who didn't believe in it. That's what we're doing. And in my humble burger flipping waitress of an opinion, I believe it's much more important to protect our freedom, to protect our prosperity, to protect our province and each other and our children than it is to support any particular leader. If the leader is going to help us accomplish our goal of making sure those things are forefront in our society, then we should support them 100%. If they're going to do things to interfere with that or set us backwards, then we should speak our mind, just like we did with the proposed Alberta rights that was tabled in the legislature a couple weeks ago. That's the way democracy is supposed to work. And that's the way it will work. And the one benefit of the horrible abuses and attacks that people have seen when they disagree with delusional thinking that tells us that we need to mutilate children for their own good, I would say that's the reason why we're involved. That's the reason why we're continuing to be involved. I didn't get involved until the government told me that I couldn't sell hamburgers anymore and I had to shut my restaurant down and destroy my business and my life because they said so with no evidence. I got involved. And now I continue to be involved because I've realized there are so many more things going on that we need to fix. It's going to take all of us to fix it. We need to make sure that going forward in this province, particularly, and even in this country, that we make it too big to rig. I hear people all the time say, oh, my vote doesn't matter. Oh, I'm just one person. What can I do? You know what? Said 7 billion people. We can make a difference. British Columbia is an excellent example of that. Some of those MLAs in the Greater Vancouver area won by like 12 votes. 12 people could have made a huge difference. 12 people in that case could have actually changed the province, changed the outcome of the province. 1,000 people could have ensured that British Columbia went back to a common sense approach to governance and society. So you can make a difference. So just like what happened in the United States with Trump's landslide victory, I'm absolutely blown away with some of the things that I'm watching him say that he's going to do. We need to do the same thing. We need to do the same thing here in Alberta. We need to walk the right path, focus on the goal, and make it too big to rig. Okay. I got work to do. Have a great day, everybody.